Hello, my name's George Agnew and I'm guiding you on a walk today round parts of the Rougham estate from the Blackthorpe barn along with my dog Bolly, who's going to be coming along, absolutely loves these walks. And today's walk is quite a long one. We think it's going to take about 2 hours, and we'll go further south on the estate and into the southeast corner of the estate, really, an area called Chevins Wood. So off we go and we'll see how we get on. So to get Bolly started, he's always interested in the smells, and sometimes it's quite difficult to get him going on a walk because he's found something so interesting to smell and he just can't wait to, can't wait. He can't start because he's just so engaged with all these doggy smells. Anyway, we're off, so I think we're okay. What you see on the left here is a lime tree that was blown down in 1987 in the Great Gale, which affected the avenue of trees here really rather a lot. And a lot of the trees came down and a lot of them have re-shot up, producing multiple stems. Morning! Hello! Hi! You okay? And so the avenue as we see it today is actually quite a sort of shattered remnant of what they used to be. So, it was always a double avenue of lime trees, and just so many of them have come down now that we've just got a few bits left of the originals, and then these suckers coming up where the stems and trunks were, which themselves have developed a lot of character, so I don't really mind too much now. One's got so used to it, but the morning after the gale it was an incredible shock seeing all these trees down. Crossing the Blackthorpe Barn car park at the moment, which we have to do on many of these walks. There's a car coming, I think, so there we go. And we will shortly be heading into the Downs Wood, which is the starting point of so many of these walks. I don't think it's anything to be sorry about really, because it's actually a very pretty walk and a very pretty wood. Passing some blackthorn, which is still in flower, and it is so pretty. Just look at that. Isn't that really, really lovely? Really lovely. It's so subtle really, and as the year moves on the flowers get bigger and more blousy and more bold and full, and I think back to the blackthorn and how impressed I was with it, and you think, well, actually that's not wasn't so very much to see with the blackthorn really, but actually of course there is. And at this time of year when everything is so pared back, it seems really special. I think some of these big oak trees and big trees, lime trees and things in this wood probably date back to the original park, which would have been stretching out from the old Rougham Hall, which was built in about 1680, and the fields dotted around there, I think in an effort to try to make the whole thing the park seem more extensive. I think trees were planted probably in the meadows and things surrounding the hall to try to glamorize the views, I should think you could say. And somebody has described the area around the old hall as parky. In other words, not really a park, but trying to be a bit like a park. And that may be a slightly mean way of describing it, but it gets the idea through that it was they were borrowing the landscape, I think would probably be quite a good way to describe it, and incorporating the roads and the views along, obviously with the church, into the the views from the hall, and why not? Passing more oaks and limes here. All these various non-native things, the rhododendron, the box, other trees. We get quite a fine view of some of the paths from here. And we're heading on the classic route which we do through with most of these walks through the wood, where we do this little turn to the left and then head on through the length of the wood, heading in an easterly direction. Now beginning to see a few daffodils appearing in here. Again, like the snowdrops, they're not native or anything. Somebody has planted them, or somebody has dumped some bulbs here. Oh, they've just ended up here somehow, and they've established themselves. There aren't huge numbers, and they are quite sort of diverse, as if they've come from lots of different sources. There are quite a few trees in this wood which have half blown over, and this happens during the winter gales. They're usually these conifer trees. What we're looking at here on the right, look up into the canopy, they are largely Scots pine, and a few of the weaker ones that haven't really established a proper root system become quite vulnerable, and when there's a gale they will come down. I mean, it's an entirely natural thing. This is what would happen in the wild, and progressively you would have less and less trees, but they would get bigger and stronger until they became sort of single trees standing out against a clearer area. Scots pine is a native tree, as the name suggests. They were a big part of the original Caledonian forest in Scotland, and that's probably stretching down into the north of England. I've always been rather keen on planting them. From a timber viewpoint, there's a thing called Corsican pine, which obviously, as its name suggests, comes from further south in Europe, and that's a more vigorous tree and a better timber tree. You can tell the two trees apart by looking at their stems or their trunks. The Scots pine has a slightly reddish tinge as you look up the trunk towards the canopy, and the top of the canopy normally sort of twists over in the direction away from the wind, whereas and the trunks also are not particularly thick. This is the reason why the forest is not very keen on them, because they don't produce so much timber. Corsican pine has a much thicker trunk, much more grey trunk, and at the top of the tree it's still pointing upwards as it's still gaining height and that sort of thing. They're a very fine tree. We have some in the park and some planted in our woods, but what we have here, we're walking past here, are largely Scots pine. Birds are singing. I hope you can hear that. Absolutely lovely sound. Sun's coming out now, and even though it's been quite a cold morning, I think the day promises to be quite beautiful. And there's a hint of spring in the air, I think you have to say, which is absolutely delightful. We're coming to the muddy corner of Downs Wood here. I'm wearing my boots as usual, and I'm quite glad I'm doing so. And if you've watched any of these other videos, you will know that Bolly likes to turn right at the end here, because that usually means a longer walk. And we will be going right, and you'll see he will head right himself, trying to make sure we go the longer way. So there we go. So he's now pleased, and there's a prospect of a longer walk for him. And today's walk really is quite a long one. We've had such a wet winter. In the last few days it actually hasn't rained, and so even though everything is still terribly wet, it does seem to be a slight sort of easing in the weather at the moment, and it feels a little bit more what one would have expected at this time of year. I believe there is more rain in the forecast, but let's enjoy the weather that we're having at the moment. And of course, when it's raining, you don't get so much light, and the days always seem rather sort of dull. Whereas at the moment, with the sun coming out, it's going to be quite a bright day, I think. A little bit of a problem for filming, but nevertheless, very good. And I'm just looking down at the stream, which is running as it has been doing for months, taking away the surplus water. There's a lot of ivy in this hedge on the left, and it has been probably a little bit detrimental to the growth of the hedge, but it does enhance the biodiversity of the hedge. You probably know I'm quite keen on ivy, and so we've got all the additional insects that will live in that sort of habitat, which enriches the whole ecosystem. And it's good to see. I think the main problem with ivy really is when it becomes very dense, and the weight of it, when hit by a wind, can result in blowing a tree over. I mean, that is what brought down quite a lot of the trees in the 1987 gale. Though there were many that came down that had no ivy on them at all. Passing field maple now on our left. And this walk goes up here to a little junction where the footpath goes left and right. We'll be going left and heading towards Rougham Church, which is our first sort of landmark on this walk. Trees look so statuesque in the winter, I think, with their bare trunks and bare branches, and one can really sense the structure of them. Other times of year when they're covered in leaves, they obviously have a wonderful, wonderful beauty, but actually being able to see how they're built is fascinating. That is a particular treat of the winter. I mean, look at this one here. Isn't that just wonderful? So we've turned left now and we're heading up the hill past a hedgerow on our left, and that wonderful oak we just looked at, and which is literally just here. Just look at it, isn't that just wonderful? And I can't bend over far enough backwards to film it all, but it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And now we pick up the old hedge line and the church is appearing in the distance. It looks more distant, I think, on film than it does to the native eye. So, what is it, quarter of a mile away maybe? Rougham Church has not only has this remarkable tower, but it has a very fine peal of 6 bells, which are rung very expertly by local bell ringers on special occasions. Not so long ago we had a new vicar, I think the word is inducted, into the parish, and at the ceremony there was a lot of bell ringing going on. In fact, it slightly amusingly, the bell ringers hadn't quite finished when the service was supposed to start, and so they were absolutely determined to finish their peal, or whatever it's called, and everybody had to including the bishop had to stand and wait for the bell ringing to stop. But it was splendid, and it added a little touch of humour to the whole thing. I can hear a lark singing. I'm not going to be able to pick it up on the camera. I barely see it with the naked eye, but it's conceivable you can hear that on the microphone. It's so much a sound of spring, I think. Wonderful, wonderful sound. If you look on the left front there, you can see a sort of a silhouette of lime trees. That is part of the avenue of lime trees running from the old Rougham Hall up to the church on the meadow called the Spinney. It's very beautiful, and we will be walking down through there on one of these walks. That was also badly damaged during the 87 gale. Not as badly though as the Blackthorpe Barn Avenue, which was somehow the angle of the wind caught it differently. I can't remember what the direction of the wind. I suppose it was probably from the west. Usually is on these occasions. Begin to hear the school children out in the playground. And we're looking at this old hedge line as we go. Various odds and ends in the hedge which aren't exactly natural, like plastic bags and things, which is always rather a shame to see. Fortunately, we don't have that much litter around here. We're very lucky. I think what we all try to do when we find any litter is to try to remove it quickly before it becomes a point of attraction for other people to think that it's okay to put things down there. So as long as we can try to keep it all clear, usually people take their litter home. Car park's quite busy today. The school and church car park. We have to pick our way through the cars. Rougham School has about 200 pupils, which is incredible. It has a really good reputation, and there's quite a lot of competition to get children here, which is a very good position for the school to be in. The estate has a charitable trust called the Rougham Estate Trust, and one of the objects of the trust is musical education, and we support the music education here at Rougham, and this has resulted in Rougham having quite a reputation for its musical ability. I know some of the people who are involved in the music exams, and every time there are music exams, there's always a party of children from Rougham School, and they're usually some of the best performing children of any of them. We'll just have to wait here a minute before we cross the road, because there's a party of cyclists coming. And then there's traffic. It's really quite busy. Have to be a bit careful here. There's a pavement here on this side of the road. Now passing Rougham Church, which is a really fine view. War Memorial. And shortly we'll be passing the Lich Gate, which we visited on a previous walk. Today we're just going to carry on. Here the Lich Gate is appearing, with a bit of blackthorn growing behind it. It's a very fine little structure. Now our footpath peels off to the right, and we go away from the public road and along this field edge. And there's a wonderful blackthorn hanging over the path here, which looks really great at the moment. Things are really moving on. The laurel from the garden here is it's almost in flower. I can actually smell it. It's extraordinary. That's immediately taking me into memories of spring. It's extraordinary how scent has such an evocative ability to take you back to previous times when you've experienced it. It's one of the reasons I love gardening so much. It's the smell of the wonderful, wonderful things you can plant, and the anticipation of it. A lot of it's about anticipation with lots of things. I mean, a walk like this, you're looking forward to going on it and thinking about it before it actually happens. The walk, of course, is lovely, but so is the anticipation. This walk now is on a tarmac surface, but it's actually very uneven because of the tree roots, and so do take care walking along here. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility that I shall go and trip up. Do my best not to. In front of me now, coming up on the left, is the pond that we restored a few years ago, and doesn't look like very much from here, because you can just see the 2 or 3 oak trees and some hawthorn probably growing around the pond, all rather bare at this time of year. You can't really see the pond at all, but that little cluster of trees and bushes are surrounding the pond on the north side and west side. The line of poplars on our right marks the route of this walk, and when there's a gap you'll be able to show you the next line of poplars, which are planted along the ditch line. I think you probably can barely see them through the hedge here, but there will be a gap later on and you can see them. So there are rows and rows of these things left here. At the moment we've taken out quite a lot because they are becoming dangerous, overgrown and beginning to rot in the trunk. But we will be keeping groups of them surviving as memories of past landscapes and as food sources for moths and that sort of thing. All part of trying to keep the diversity or enhance the diversity here on the estate. On our left here, just to give you a bit of a sense of location, is a footpath going across a field. The end of this walk, we will be walking back down that as we head back towards the barn. So we're now on one of these loops which will circle round the estate to the south, which is the direction we're going at the moment, and then round to the east, swinging round to the north, the west, and we'll eventually come back along that little path. I suspect there was originally a hedge line there, and because we're currently planting hedges, my mind is often on hedge planting, and I have been speculating as to whether or not that might be a target for another planting season, to get some new hedge along there. When you do it like that, effectively across a field, what's now become a field, you have to do it in such a way that all the vehicles and everything can get through without making it too much of a problem for them. But I suspect we can probably achieve that by a wide enough opening at both ends, which is what we've done on the other ones. So I shall be having a chat with various people about that and see where we can take that idea forward. We're coming towards the end of this hedge line on the right, and when it clears, we'll be able to get a bit more of a view. This is one of the things about planting hedges. You will be limiting views later on as the hedges grow up, so it's all a bit of a balance with the landscape. There, we can now see through this gap, and you can see poplar trees growing in the next line over there, as it is at the moment. And here we go, we're going shortly underneath the electricity pylons, taking the power through to Bury from Ipswich, and approaching some newly planted hedge, which is it's nice to see. The trees were planted a few years ago here by our then farm manager Simon, who's now our estate manager, and now we've enriched it by planting a double row of mainly hawthorn, but also other species. That's probably blackthorn. I think that's probably blackthorn down there. It's rather pointy thorns. It is a very thorny plant. There's probably Guelder rose. Maybe some hornbeam in there. And I'm sure some other things that I haven't thought of at the moment. We're now approaching Kingshall Street, which is a next feature on our walk. Obviously we have to be respectful for people's privacy, and so we won't be filming houses or anything like that. Just filming the walk. Here's a gap where one of the oaks failed, and we'll just look in the top of the tube, see what there is to see. Basically nothing tree-wise, just some dead grass. This is, I'm afraid, what you get. You don't get 100% success with these tree planting schemes, but it gives an opportunity later on to plant some more bits into the gaps. These oaks have actually grown very well. That one must be 8 feet tall. Excellent. And it looks suspiciously like a couple more failures here. What's going on in there? More dead grass, sadly. And I think the same probably applies to that one. We have a poo bin conveniently appearing here on the left. Anybody in need of one of those? And now, as we approach this lane, I have to be careful. There's nothing coming, so we're all right. We cross over and then go to the right, and then very shortly into the left and through this hedge line. The route so far is the same as one of the other walks which we filmed recently, but fairly shortly we're going to diverge by turning left rather than right. We're still heading south on this walk at the moment. too far away. I can now see the hedge line actually, where there's a row of a few oak trees, which is where we will be turning left. So go up to the top here and then swing round to the right, round that very green bit of hedge line, and following that round up onto the public footpath and then left there. No longer hear the skylark. There's a lot of other bird song instead. Skylarks seem to prefer the light sandy soil at the northern end of the estate. Come on, Molly. He keeps wanting to stop every 10 or 15 metres. New exciting smell, and we have to sort of find some form of balance where we can keep this walk on the go whilst he's having his entertainment too. It's getting muddier here. This is because the soil types are changing. It's getting more like clay. It's slippery. A little bit slippery to walk along here. And I'm very glad of my Wellington boots. This green hedge line is now approaching. We follow around the edge of that. Bring round to the right and then around to the left. And very soon now we'll be on the public footpath. Breaking new ground for the purposes of these walks. Some more smells here. That's actually some blackthorn, which is one of the things about blackthorn is it suckers a lot, and we've got quite a lot of it growing along this edge here, and if you don't do anything about it you'll end up with another hedge line here, so we'll end up with a double hedge. Which happens quite a lot actually, and then people will have to decide at some point in the future whether or not they're happy to have the double hedge. And there you can see where it's grown some more. It's already thickening out. Swinging around to the right. We're now walking parallel to the public footpath, waiting for the little spot where we can get through. Here is the opening coming up, so we just walk through here. And then we're going to be turning left. Right. following the footpath along here as we approach the houses. One moment Bolly's smelling something and holding up the walk, the next moment she's rushing ahead and you can't keep up. Now approaching the rather almost say urban section of the walk as we pick our way through between various houses on the footpath, and we have a little short section on the road as we move from one side to the other. The path gets very narrow on the other side at one point, as you will see. Swing round to the right. And then round to the left. Another convenience poo bin is looming in front of us. We don't have need of it at the moment yet. And the other people do, I'm very sure. Then we have a short flight of steps down onto the public road. If you've got a dog on the lead, do make absolutely sure it's on a short lead here. This is a vehicle going past as we speak, and you can't see them until you emerge down here. Now we go right briefly, walking along here, keeping safely over to the right hand side of the road. And then here we turn left. It's a very brief bit on the road. We go up here and you can see there's a public footpath sign on the left here. So we follow along here, making our way between these houses. And then our footpath is going to be following a fence line on the right. And I'm just going to show you the sign here, which is a private sign somebody's put up. Very helpful way. Is it there? Yes, it is. They're saying footpath to the right. So what we do is we go right over here to this edge and follow along this fence line. And this is a very narrow little bit. Quite shortly we'll emerge on a meadow at the other side. Come on, buddy. There's room for one person at a time to go through here. If you had a pram or a wheelchair or something, I think you might struggle with this, because it's so narrow. Swinging around to the left and the path continues. Trying not to film the houses by just focusing on the path. Most people have got a fence line to give themselves privacy. And it won't be too long now before we emerge onto a meadow involving a stile. So I think it's just about to happen. Here we are. Here is the stile. So Bolly will go through the special dog bit, and I will try to check him. Right. And now maybe go over the stile myself. No, Bolly, don't go back through it. Hell. There we go. There, good. I don't know what the camera would have thought of that, but anyway, we've made it over this time. And we're now on some more meadows called Kingswell Meadows. So it's a bit more the sort of walk that you're expecting to see, I think. Yeah. These are a series of meadows which run east-west away from Kingswell Street easterly and link up with an area of the village called Nether Street. There's a fence line coming up on our right, and we'll be walking through the gap. And you can see beyond this gap there's a gate for yet another meadow beyond. But I believe we're going to be turning left about halfway down this second meadow to join the route of the footpath. At the moment you can see the gates are all open here. I don't think there are any cattle here. Normally in the winter the cattle aren't around so much on the meadows. And one of the clues, of course, is cowpats. If you see fresh cowpats around the place, you know that there are cattle about. I haven't seen any around here, so I don't think there are any. Now I think I can see our next stile approaching, which is to take us through this gap in the fence on the public footpath on the other side. So here, well, let's come through on the left. You've got to be lifting up the thing. You've got to come through on the left. Further up, that's the way. Right, we've gone through. Try to get through. It's not always very easy. Right, that's got Bolly sorted out. And I'll sort myself out. Over the stile, holding onto the handle. There are bits of rabbit wire on here to stop the stile from being slipping. Right, we've made it onto the other side. Perhaps it's rather easier if you're not holding a camera as well. Now we're on a footpath on the other side of the meadow, and this is going to take us down to Nether Street. Hedge line on the right is quite an established hedge. It's really quite thick. I should think it's 3 meters thick, maybe. And there's a ditch carrying water. There are not so many oak trees growing along it just here. It's actually a holly. Yeah. And then a rather less than highly successful oak tree covered in ivy. In that case, it may be inhibiting the tree a little bit, I think, because the tree's not very big. And our path takes us further down here. And before too long, we're going to emerge on another bit of public road. All this is explained in the notes that accompany these walks. Ollie and I haven't been down this one for a long time. So for him, there's lots of very fresh smells which are most exciting, I'm sure. Now the path seems to just disappear. What it does is goes through a bit of a thicket where there used to be an allotment, which is totally overgrown, on the left. And on the far side of this, we emerge on the public road. Pretty quiet bit of road, I have to say. But nevertheless, traffic does come along here, so that's the view to the left. And that's the view to the right, which is where we're actually going. So follow along this public road for a few hundred yards. This area is called Nether Street, which most people find quite amusing in that it basically means the lowest part of the village. And next door to it is an area called High Rougham. The difference between Nether Street and High Rougham is a few feet, really. It just shows the nature of the landscape around here. It's terribly flat, of course. And for those of us who live here, this seems entirely normal. Other people find it quite odd. We had a drink in that puddle. There was too much water down his throat, I think. I can see a few primroses beginning to appear down here. Spring is not far away. We're really very much on the cusp between winter and spring. The weather changes from day to day and it seems to flip-flop backwards and forwards from one to the other. Now there's traffic coming both directions, so we've got to pull over to the side. Miss Bolly, we've just got to wait. Won't take long. Just going to wait for the traffic. Well, it's not very good at traffic, so we have to be careful. Line of quite young trees growing along here in the hedge line, which is very nice to see. And trees of that age are really quite unusual. The old ones are pretty common, as we know, and the young ones also, but this particular age is rather less so. More traffic. You never quite know what you're going to get on a public road. And another one. And another one. Why it's useful to keep Polly on short lead. We're going to be walking under another power line here. Basically, there are two lines of pylons across the estate, east-west, and this is the second row. You have to be careful not to plant trees under them, of course, because they're just going to get chopped down by the line maintenance people. So a hedge is okay, but just don't plant trees. Of course, what I tend to find is that's exactly where the natural regeneration happens. And so on we go. Hello. Come on we go, Bonnet. It won't be too long before we turn left. May be able to see a footbridge on our left front crossing the ditch. And that's where we're going to be heading next. We're towards the southern end of the estate here, not the extreme southern end, but in southerly parts, and the landscape is really rather different. More smaller fields, more hedgerows, lots and lots of ancient trees, and it's a testament to its ancient heritage. Now we're approaching the footpath here. You can see the bridge which we're going to be going over. Polly knows what to do. And that's the hedge, well, the hedge line and the ditch. And on this side, we are now going up the side of this field. And there's an environmental crop here on the left, which is providing cover for insects and birds. I would say probably what we have just passed is the sort of furthest end of the walk, and we're now sort of looping around and starting to make our way back. But we won't be copying the same route for much of it. We'll be breaking new ground. Ahead of us is a piece of wood called Chevins wood, or Chevins wood sometimes in the ancient documents. It features in Domesday Book, and there was a manor here at that time. We can't find much evidence of it, even though there are lots of enormous ditches which look as if they could have been parts of moats or things of that sort. But we haven't yet been able to make real sense of the layout of whatever there was here. It's a lovely bit of woodland, not really accessible from this end, so we're going to walk on the edge of it and then joining a green lane. Hedge on the right here is actually the estate boundary, and so just looking at the arrangements here. I'm not quite sure whether it belongs to us or our neighbours. This is always a thing where you have a boundary along a hedge line, and it's normally worked out, I think, on the assumption that when it first started, somebody dug a ditch and they put the spoil on their own side of the boundary and then planted a hedge on the top of it. So I think what people normally say is the hedge owns the ditch, because the hedge had been planted on the bank that was created by the owner of the land on that side, who actually was digging out the ditch, which you'd really only do if you owned it. So that's the sort of guide. Of course, it doesn't work every time. Now there's a footpath that goes round to the right, Chevins wood there, which we are not going on. We are going to be going straight up to the edge of the wood and turning left. There's quite a deep ditch here. You can see the water at the bottom, and I wouldn't want to try and scramble through there. You'd have to be quite keen, I think. We're walking along the southern edge of Chevins Wood, a tiny little bit of footpath which links us up with a green lane. That deep ditch is an indication of some of these huge ditches around Chevins Wood, which are all part of, I imagine it's archaeology really. Now we're approaching the edge of this green lane where we're going to be turning right. I'll just swing the camera around to the left, you can see what's happening that way. And we now go around this way to the right, which is where we're heading. You can see where we're going. There's a hedge on the left here, but not on the right. There has been discussion about possibly planting some hedge on the right here, but I think the practicalities of farming intervene a bit in that combines and tractors and trailers and drills and all sorts of machines have to be able to make their way around here. And whenever I've suggested it, I've received a bit of a discouraging reply, shall we say. But there are so many possible areas to plant hedges here that really I can usually find another place to go. So we've got our hedge line on the left, ancient oaks dotting the line of the green lane. Green lanes are basically public rights of way that just have never been surfaced with stone and tarmac and that sort of thing. They're technically usually as much of a right of way as the tarmac road. Reality is, of course, they're not easy to get up and down with the sort of vehicles we drive around in, and so they become very quiet spots and very, very beautiful usually. On the right here we've got a heap of muck which is waiting to be spread on the field as part of our generative farming. The path swings round to the left a bit. The line of oaks continues on the left through the hedge, and there's a big oak standing there on its own on the right. And at the far end there's a very fine sort of skeleton of a now dead ancient oak tree, which you can see we did try to rescue at one stage. You can see where we've cut off a lot of the branches, and I'm afraid the tree lived on for a while, but it finally died anyway. We've done our best. We leave it in the landscape as a sort of monument. A wonderful standing dead wood. This oak here it's got holes in the trunk where things can live. It's got dead branch there, but most of it is pretty healthy. Now this is the sort of reason why you wear Wellington boots on a walk like this. It's quite muddy. Or maybe being a bit obtuse and walking through the worst of it, we can actually go to the left a bit here. But I'm certainly glad of my boots. Now miraculously, we're approaching High Rougham. You might not think we've climbed a lot. It's probably 15 feet or something. Maybe even less. And the road is flooded on the corner. More reasons for Wellington boots. We will pick our way around as best we can. Probably won't mind too much. I have to say I wasn't aware of this flood. We're going to go through this. Come on. It's very deep. I think I might have to carry you, Bolla. There we go. Now, maybe we can achieve this. Hello. Do you know how deep this is? It is amazing. Swimming, yes, I think that'd be a good idea. Well, I suppose one thing about this is it's going to wash my boots, which were getting rather dirty. So I'm absolutely amazed how deep this is. Right, Ollie, there we go. So this is High Rougham. I'm trying to recover from the surprise of that flood. It's a very small community of people. Live in a lovely corner of the village. And at the moment they must only be going in and out one way, I assume. Unless they've got a boat. There's nothing dogs like more than drinking out of the puddle. You give them water at home in the dog bowl, and this is absolutely fresh, they don't want it at all. It's some dreadful old puddle in the middle of the road, and they can't get enough of it. Now we're going to be turning to the right along here, getting away from the road. Another track along the edge of some fields. So this route is now going north, and we just go up to this hedge line here where we're going to be turning left. And I think those white posts are probably marking the sites of field drains. Drainage might be on our minds at the moment after having waded through that really deep flood. Ditch digging is quite controversial, really. Some people think we shouldn't do it. We should just let the land flood. Other people think that we've got to make the farm work. And as farmers we have to do that. But we nevertheless do try to balance it all out. So here we are, here's the ditch. See if I can see a land drain. Yes, I can. There's the post. If you look down the bottom there, you can see a piece of pipe and water flowing out of it. And that is how we try to keep the fields drained and the land drained. Obviously, creating wetland areas is a wonderful habitat, and it is the thing that we're trying to work on doing here on the estate. But you have to respect the ditch system that's been created for the benefit not of us, just ourselves, but of other people as well. And so it's always a bit tricky. Here we've got blackthorn growing along the edge of the ditch on this side, in danger of creating a double hedge here. Another white post and another drainage pipe in the water, down by the water. So we're going to be walking along here and approaching another piece of woodland which is called new wood. And new wood grows quite close to the new road, and neither of these things are really very new at all. But at one stage this road was created, the one we're going to be going along very briefly. What I would just point out, it's not a good idea to let dogs go too close to blackthorn hedges because they are very, very thorny. And I think Bolly was getting rather too close there. So I have to pull him back and keeping him on short lead on this section here. And the new wood is approaching on our right front. We'll be walking along the southern side of it here. It's not quite grassy beneath our feet. The hen pheasant. And there's some blackthorn in flower. So we have a hedge line with the ditch and a bit of a hedge on the other side. So effectively we've got here what I was talking about. We've got a double hedge, which always makes it difficult to clean the ditch out because you have to cut one side of the hedge down to do it, which always seems rather drastic. But as we've just seen, what happens if the drainage isn't working, you can get a major flood, which can affect the local population quite substantially. So, tricky balance to achieve. Pylons running now on our left front. And I can see a lot of primroses growing in the wood. I don't know if this is easy to pick up. Let's try to pull Polly in again before he gets his feet impaled on black thorns. But I think we might be going to get a rather fine display of primroses this year. How very exciting. primroses have been quite poor for a number of years, my experience. But then every now and again we get an absolutely massive year. I can't remember when the last one was. I have visions of seeing them all, but I can't quite remember how many years ago it was. Maybe it was 5-6 years ago. So here we're going to swing round to the right. We're following the edge of the wood, and also the edge of the path. And there's a lot of cut blackthorn which does this suckering as it comes out from the hedge line. If you did nothing about it, it would just cover the entire area. So again, it's a question of achieving some balance. You can see into the wood where some trees have blown down. There's some conifer planting at one side of the wood at the back. There's a Scots pine here. I don't know if you can make out the fact that as you go up the trunk, it gets redder, more red, more grey at the bottom, more red at the top. It's a distinctive sign of Scots pine. And then at the top it's all very twisted and beautiful. The Japanese would absolutely love that. Just the sort of thing you see in a garden in Japan. Now we're coming up to another hedge line, and we're going to be turning left. As we're beginning to make our way significantly further west, and gradually making our way back towards the Blackthorpe Farm. We're certainly not there yet. Ahead of us is the line of pylons, almost directly going ahead of us, and new road crossing our front, running north-south, south-north. And this is going to be actually one of the trickier bits on this walk, because this road is quite busy and we have to walk along it for maybe a couple of 100 metres. So this is very much a place where any dog must be on a lead, and on a short lead. You know, I would like you to all keep your dogs on the leads all the time. This is an absolute must along here. It doesn't last long, and then we're crossing the field. So coming up to the edge of the road, car going past. Another car. And a third one. Shock. Right, so this is the new road. There's the Bennetom's pub at the end there. There's a car coming down here on the left hand side of the road. Hopefully the left hand side of the road. And we're going to go up to the right here. So we'll wait for this car to pass, and then we'll do our little bit of walk along. Right, come on, Dolly. Now we're going to walk along the edge of this thing here. And actually I can already see the footpath sign ahead. It's maximum 200 metres. So it's not too bad really. Just do be careful. Rougham church is again beginning to appear on our left front, and we will be going back past that as we return on our walk. Here comes our big vehicle, great big lorry. And something else coming now. Car. Trickiest bit actually of this whole thing is the last bit, because we go left at a point where the road bends around to the right, and so I always think the best way to deal with this is first of all wait for the traffic to stop, looking behind, front, and they cross over, and actually do this last section based on the left-hand side of the road. Get a better view of the traffic, and they have a better view of you. Not far now. Probably about 30 yards to go. Very shortly now we'll be off this. See the footpath sign. And we head off to the left. And you can see the footpath actually marked across the field. So this is what we follow. This is the place that I'm rather hoping we may be able to plant another hedge line and widen this thing out. The far side here, we will be approaching the path that we walked on the way out, and you can now see the line of the poplar trees we were talking about. On the right front is the pond that we dug out, and I'm very glad we're away from that road. In a way, it's probably quite good that you could see the amount of traffic that can come down it, so you're aware of that before you pick this walk. But I think the value of the walk far outweighs that little experience on the road. Oh no, there's something scratch. So on our right front now, you can see the pond. Might have a little detour and look at it as we head back towards the path. You can see that the path technically goes straight ahead here, up to the footpath running left-right in front of us. But just here to the right, we could just walk over and have a quick look at this pond. Bollock, come on, I'm going to go this way. So nice to see these ponds recovering after they've been dug out. always seems rather drastic when you dig them out and you think, what on earth are we doing here? This is disturbing everything, but it has to be done every now and again. And there's a duck. I hadn't spotted that. That just indicates how important these things are for wildlife. Ducks come here to breed. That's a mallard, female mallard duck, and it may have a nest. Yeah, so I think it's important we get away from that as quick as we can. And we're coming down now onto the path we walked coming the other way. And we're suddenly on a rather more established path, shall we say, having negotiated all sorts of stuff, including floods, stiles and mud and meadows, and narrow little routes through between houses. We're back on a rather established path, shall we say. Rougham Church is going to be on our left front, and will suddenly appear at the end of this little bit of path. There's the church, peering through the hedge. Church tower peering above the hedge line. That wonderful blackthorn in flower hanging over the road, or over the path here in front of us, which we looked at going the other way. Very beautiful. Exceptionally beautiful. Carry on walking on what's almost like a little tunnel. The flowers hanging over our heads. A convenient poo bin appearing on our right front. Just have to turn around to sort out Polly's lead. We have the Lich Gate again. Churchyard. Beautiful church. And to the right we have the Spinney Meadow with its line of lime trees, or its avenue of lime trees, which have all been grazed off at head height for cattle, which is quite unusual sight. Bit of traffic along here. And then we cross the road. Come on, Polly. And we're going to be picking up the footpath on the right-hand corner of this car park. And so in a moment we'll make our way in between the trees, in between cars, and find the path on the other side. And this time we'll get a rather splendid view across the little valley. Let's go through here. Footpath leads ahead. You can see how the ground falls away a little bit, giving us a much better view than we normally get on our very flat Rougham landscape. Beautiful. The reality is that the land in Rougham, all flat though it is, falls away to the north towards Thurston and rises towards Bradfield St George to the south. And it's a sort of plateau, but it's a sort of sloping plateau that slopes towards the north. So all the drains run in that direction. Here we're walking downhill slightly. Towards the end of the walk, I think we all get a little tired and the chatter tends to diminish, and I'm afraid my commentary is becoming a little bit sporadic. But we're also retracing our steps, so these are all things we saw before, even though not facing in this direction. I think Bolly's going to be quite tired when we get back. And there's one of our buses. We do have a bus route here in Rougham. And there's one of the buses that goes past the Blackthorpe Barn Avenue. And it's run by Mully's. I'm trying to remember the number. It's something like 376 or something. I wouldn't rely on that, but there is a bus route in Rougham that you can use to get out here from Bury. And if you check it up on the internet, I'm sure you can find the correct number. This is all quite complicated just here, finding the right bit of path. So as we're walking along here, going forwards, you can see the hedge line which we planted earlier. We're crossing the ditch with all the running water, which you can now hear. And at this point we turn right. There's all the water running along the ditch. Yet again. We're making our way back. This is the Downs Wood now appearing on the horizon. And that will take us virtually up to the barn. So we're not far away now at all. Be 100 metres maybe to the edge of the wood. I think was a jay. Just flew out of the hedge, made all that noise. One of the amazing things about jays is that they actually plant acorns, basically burying them to come back and find later, but what they effectively do is they go around planting a wood of trees. It's fantastic. Their song is not very elegant, but they're very beautiful with flashes of blue on their wings. And when you know what they actually achieve, they are heroes in my eyes. At the top of the poplar tree in front of us, I can actually see some mistletoe. Big ball of mistletoe. There's quite a lot of it growing in this, at the end of this wood here, but all so high up you can't reach it. Probably a good thing really, otherwise we'd all be harvesting it. Mistletoe is a parasite which lives on other trees. A lot of it grows on apple trees. Most of the mistletoe which we see at Christmas comes from apple orchards in the west of England and into Wales. Now we're turning left back on our usual little path which takes us through the Downs Wood. Path which is becoming quite familiar. The mud in this little corner seems quite modest now compared to that flood we had to negotiate earlier, which at one stage I did wonder if it was going to go over the top of my Wellington boots. Didn't. It was not that far off. Well, he keeps walking around me and the lead gets trapped. It's wrapped around my legs. There we go. There's really quite a diversity of trees growing in this wood. The beech trees, the beech just there, which I don't think we've pointed out before. Not the most healthy, it's got a great big scar on it, but it's still beech. This wonderful old trunk there, a long dead oak, I imagine. If one wonders when that was planted as an acorn, that's going back many, many hundreds of years. I wonder whether it would have been a jay that planted that acorn at that time. Sun coming out a little bit, casting the odd shadow through the wood. hasn't been quite as sunny as I thought on this walk, but it's been very nice. Following those exact route. It's been along here so many times. Coming out towards the western edge of Downs Wood now. The air raid shelters coming into view, and beyond them, edge of the Blackthorpe Barn car park. It won't be long now until we're back at the start of the walk. We'll take this little narrow angly thing through to the left. We came through slightly further over to the right before, but it really makes very little difference. Now we're walking through the middle of the car park, and the Blackthorpe Barn is beginning to appear on our left front, which will only be a minute or two before we're back there. Swing left, up the little footpath up to the barn. And the sun coming out just as we arrive to welcome us back. Here we are, the Barn Meadows on the left, the Blackthorpe Barn rising up over here to the right. And so our walk comes to an end. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.